Would you classify your marriage as being boring and that's something that you really want to fix? Well, you're in luck because today that's exactly what we're talking about. And we're going to find some ways to reignite that passion inside of your marriage. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Husband's Coach's Corner, the podcast that teaches husbands how to love their wife every day and become better men in the process. I'm your host, Chris Scott, aka The Husband Coach. Welcome back to another episode of the Husband Coach's Corner. Today, we're going to be talking about when you think your marriage is boring. All right. Now, this is a very subjective thing and everyone is going to see their marriage differently. So we're going to lay some ground rules. And before I get too far into the content, I do want to let you guys know about marriagedrills.com, which is my website where you can sign up for one-on-one training. And you can also join me, which is my website where you can sign up for one-on-one training. And you can also send me subjects that you would like to have talked about on the show. So if that's something you're interested in, check the description box below for links to my website and also the topic suggestion. Now, let's lay just a few ground rules in so that way we understand what's happening here when we talk about our marriage being boring. All right. So the ground rule is this is going to be subjective. Everyone is going to have a different take on if their marriage is boring or not. It's very, very personal. We're going to unpack two main points. All right. The first one is challenging yourself to do things for your wife. And then the second one is doing more with your wife. So before we dive into that, we got to have an understanding of why we feel the way that we feel. The way that we feel is exactly that. It's just the way that we feel. Now, there are ways that we can build the marriage and that we can encourage one another in the marriage. But if you feel a certain way, then you're going to act a certain way. So we have to figure out why we feel this way. Now, I have a survey here. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And this is where you'll take some time, jot down your answer, because the answer that you give is actually going to be important to what it is that you need to do in order to develop your marriage and move it from what you would classify as a boring marriage into something a little bit more exciting. All right. So here are the topic questions where we can start working on figuring out what it is that's going on in your marriage, all right? Or why you would deem your marriage to be boring. So the first question is, why am I bored in my marriage? Or what do I consider to be boring in my marriage? You can just freehand these onto a sheet of paper. Please feel free to pause the episode and then, however you got to. Second question. What season of life are we in? There's a few different seasons that I'm going to list here. There's the honeymoon phase, which is when you guys are newlyweds, you don't have any kids, and you're just developing your relationship and your marriage, and you're expressing yourself, or, all that good stuff. Then there is the parenting kids under 10 phase or season, which we all know that parenting, if you are a parent, you know that that is a season of life. And as the kids grow, it has impacts to your relationship. And then parenting kids 11 to 18, that's going to be a whole nother season of life. So parenting. And then maybe you're an empty nester. So what season of life are you in? And you don't have to agree with any of those examples that I gave. Those are just examples, something to get your mind going. But definitely identify what season of life you're in. And the third question, how much time do I spend with my wife? If you caught the importance of spending time with your wife episode with the marriage success series that I just released on Friday, you'll probably identify the need to spend time. But most of the time, why we're bored in our marriage is because we're not doing things that are engaging for one another. So you got to really ask yourself, how much time do I spend with my wife? So when we talk about how much time do you spend with your wife, try and make that an hourly number by the week. So maybe you spend 2 hours with your wife each week. Maybe you spend 5 hours. Maybe you spend 20 hours. Make that by the week. And if you are in a long distance relationship because your job requires you to go all over the place, video calls count, phone calls count, anything where you are interacting with your wife, all right? Even if you're playing Xbox while you guys are in two different locations, that counts, all right? If that's something that you guys are into, whatever it is. All right, fourth question. How good is the time that you spend with your wife? How good is the time, right? Quality time matters. If you caught the marriage success episode, you will have heard me say something along the lines of, you can't just exist with your wife. You have to be engaged with your wife. You have to actually develop that time, right? So don't just exist there, but connect with your wife. I think that's actually what I said. And the fifth question, what would a non-boring marriage look like to me? So now we're starting to jump into the growth mindset, which is what is so important when it comes to marriage. And there's a whole other episode coming about that. But the point that I want to make here is, what would a good marriage look like to you? What would you consider to be a good marriage, and what would that look like? Write it out. It doesn't matter how over the top it is. Just write it out. Be elaborate, all right? Or whatever. Be extra, all right? And then the last question, what actions am I going to take to reach the desired outcome in my marriage? What actions are you going to put in today to start building your marriage from being boring to being exciting? Now, this is a question that, hopefully I'm going to help you with answering if you don't have an answer, but jot down something that you think would be beneficial if this is something that you think you should be doing. All right. So now that we have our survey out of the way, and please feel free, pause the episode, get familiar with your answers, because your answers are really going to help you with these two topics that we're going to be unpacking, which is challenge yourself to do something for your wife, and then do more together with your wife. Those are the two main topics, right? So the first topic of challenge yourself to do things for your wife. Now, we've already talked about the honey-do list on previous episodes. That's not what I'm talking about here, okay? Those are things that your wife has asked you for, which you should absolutely do, all right? What I'm getting at here with this particular topic is you want to make a game of doing deeds for your wife that will resonate with her, all right? Turn it into a game. Make it fun. Make it something that's exciting for you to do, right? Because again, this is how you feel in your marriage. And when you start doing things for your wife, she's going to, I can almost promise you this. She's going to want to do things for you as well. And then it becomes this, how can we compete with one another to show love? And it gets that serious and that deep, all right? So that's the first thing you want to do. You want to turn this into a game. So what type of games do we do? Do something that's unexpected for your wife. Do something that is obviously something that's going to resonate with her, but unexpected to her. Something that she has absolutely no idea what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Just do that, all right? Something that is out of your normal character. Do that. But make sure that, again, this is something that is going to resonate with her and that it shows you care about her. That's important. whatever you do, it has to show that you care about her. You don't want to get into the habit of just doing things so that you can get the credit. You want to do the thing so that she feels your love for her. All right. And that naturally builds desire, that naturally builds excitement in your marriage. All right. So some examples of this. I don't buy flowers. All right. My wife knows this. But from time to time, I come home and I bring flowers. My wife loves to receive flowers. I should do it more often. I have a reason why I don't buy flowers. I think that they die and it's a waste of money. But if I say, you know what, today I want to show my wife love, I'm going to go to the store and purchase some flowers and bring those home to her. Then that's out of my character. So she appreciates it. She understands it. But two, she appreciates the fact that she's getting something that she really likes, and it makes her feel a lot better. All right. And it builds our relationship because she knows that I care about her. So that's an example of unexpected. You could do much more. There's other things that you can do, but that's just one of them. All right. And then be as creative with this as you possibly can. You don't have to do the cookie cutter thing that you see on TV or you read in a book or even what I suggest, right? Be creative for your relationship. Do something that resonates with your wife. I can't stress that enough. Like your marriage, if you want to be excited in your marriage, if you want to bring fun and joy to your marriage, it has to be something that is specific to your relationship. All right. That's the best way that I can put it. And that is the best thing that you can do for your relationship. And then make it a streak. Get on a streak, right? You want to build momentum. You want to be as consistent with this as you possibly can. So it could be big things. It could be little things. What is the streak that you want to get on? Well, so the tagline of this show is find a way to love your wife every day. What can you do to love your wife today? That's what you should be thinking about, and get on a daily streak. That is what I will always challenge every single husband who is listening to this podcast. I want you to find ways to love your wife every day. Now, I get it. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. And if you miss a day, that means you just start over the next day. But you want to get on a consistent streak of finding ways to loving your wife and ways that resonate with her, because this builds momentum over time. And eventually this starts to build trust and confidence and rapport. But when it's all said and done, you don't have a boring marriage anymore. It's kind of like a rhyme, but didn't mean to. That's genuinely the truth. The more consistent you are at doing things for your wife, the more joy and excitement you will bring to the marriage, because she's going to feel a certain way, which is then going to boost your confidence about how well you perform as a husband. And for all the wives that are listening to this, if your husband is doing things for you and you're still considering the marriage to be boring, then maybe it's time for you to take those questions that I asked earlier in the episode and unpack those for yourself. Why do you consider the marriage to be boring? What are you going to do today to start building your marriage from being boring, right? You do not have to live in a boring marriage. Marriage does not have to be boring. That's the end of that public service announcement. So let's jump into the second topic here. All right. Do more together. Now, this is actually extremely important. We need to be doing more with our wives, which is why, we did the whole episode of spending time with our wives and why it's important, segmenting it, putting it on the calendar, blocking it, all that matters. All right. But here's the deal, guys, you have to start dating your wife. All right. If this is not something that you're doing on a regular basis, then you're going to run into issues in your marriage. You have got to start dating your wife. Go on a date with your wife. And you don't have to actually leave the house. You could stay in the house. You guys can play board games. You can cook. You can paint. You can watch a movie. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do even in the house. So it doesn't matter what phase of or what season of life you guys are in or season of marriage, you're going to be able to date your wife. All right. Do something that will resonate with her before you start claiming your marriage is boring. All right. Do something fun. Do something different. Don't be afraid to try something that you guys have never tried before or done before. All right. And then the next thing on do together or do more together, revisit the date ideas that were fun for both of you. That's just an idea, right? Once upon a time before you got married, you probably took your wife on a date. Do those things again. Do something that was that you did on the date before you got married. One of the things that my wife and I did before we got married, we went to amusement parks. Go to an amusement park. Just you and your wife. Find a babysitter and, just be like, hey, me and my wife, we're going to Disneyland. And you guys go spend a day together. It's amazing how just going to an amusement park with your wife will transform the way that your relationship is seen, especially when you're doing stuff that is childlike, right? There's a level of appreciation and a level of excitement that comes when you take your wife to an amusement park, or at least for me. That's just me. Do cooperative things with your wife. And this could be all kinds of stuff, right? Working out, painting, projects around the house. So if you guys have a fixer-upper and you just wanted to spend time with your wife, do that. Because one, you're building your relationship by spending time. But two, you guys are both working for a common end goal. All right. So if there's a wall that needs to be painted, when we moved into this house here, we painted a wall in our living room. My wife, actually, it was a family thing, but, my kids are a little younger, so it became more of a husband-wife thing than it did the kids. So that was just an opportunity for us to spend time together. We were talking, we were painting, and when we finished the wall, we sat back and we looked at it and we're like, wow, look at that. And truthfully, that was something my wife said, hey, I would really like to paint a wall the next time we move. And I said, oh, well, I guess I'm going to buy some paint this time. Remembering that she said that probably years before we moved in to this particular home. So these are things that I'm talking about. It was unexpected for her and it got her excited. And that definitely gave us an opportunity to spend time to do something commonly or do something together for a common outcome, which was making sure that our wall was painted, which I call blue. She calls it something else. I don't know what the official name. I think it's like royal something, but I just call it blue. But the point here is find something to do with your wife that you guys can do together, that you can enjoy together. It will definitely help you in the long run. So as we land the plane and close this episode, you are the leader in your relationship, period. Where you lead your marriage is where your marriage is going to go. If you lead it to being boring, then yes, it will be boring. If you lead it to be exciting and adventurous and you push your guys' comfort zones in a good way, right? Because the way that we grow is by being challenged and stretched, and then we develop our strength around being stretched. So if that is something you guys are not doing, it is your responsibility as the leader to be able to do that. As the husband, you should be doing things that excite your marriage, and your wife will absolutely follow. All right. She will. As long as you're leading well, she will follow. Remember to keep a growth mindset throughout this entire process. If you get discouraged and you try both of these things, right? You're doing things for your wife. You're trying to coordinate time to date your wife and spend time with your wife. And she's like, get out my face. I don't want to talk to you. You probably got some deeper challenges than your marriage is boring, right? This is really centered towards the couple that they're on good terms with one another. They're just doing the same stuff and they're getting stuck in the rut of we do this every day. And that's what I want to try and help as much as I possibly can. Because it's a common misconception that your marriage is boring. You're probably perfectly fine. You just have to start doing things together and rebuilding that communication, rebuilding that excitement to spend time with one another, things of that sort. But you have to have a growth mindset, which means you are seeing the success of an excited marriage because you're putting in the effort to do it. All right. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. And you just have to keep seeing that in your mind. What does an excited marriage look like, or a non-boring marriage look like in my eyes? And how am I going to share that vision with my wife so that we can both work on this together? If you need help with growing your relationship, if you need coaching, you already know you can go to marriagedrills.com and sign up for one-on-one coaching. You can send me an email if you have questions about just ways that you can start getting engaged with your wife. Check the description box below and you'll find my email address. So with that, I want you guys to keep finding